being a good leader is all about people, and it's all about the framework that you create for people to be successful. And sort of at the core of that is having a set of values that the company can embrace and can understand, so that the company can move more quickly, so that people can make decisions within that framework, and they know what's right and wrong and what's expected in here at our company. And also that they know that the values are actually believed in and acted upon.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
How important are your core values? If you think they're sort of important, then you're going to really want to listen to this episode. If you already know that your core values of your company are very important to the success, growth of not only financial business, but also the people inside the business, then you're going to want to tune in here too, because we're going to give you some unique extra ways to use those company core values. To lead with your company core values means you really are putting them first and foremost inside the culture so that people know what's expected of them. Today's special guest is Joe Payne. He's the CEO and president of Code42. They run a little bit of an edgy company in that cybersecurity area where they really expect people to move fast, adapt quickly, and get it right the first time. Now, that's a little clue, because what I love about this interview is Joe and I talk about how he uses the company core values and why he leads with core values in mind. We talk about some unique elements behind this. What you will know after this interview is Joe takes this very seriously. He's had 6 companies. He knows the importance of core values. He knows why these core values are so important and why they must be lived, not just put on a wall. I want to remind you that if you haven't already downloaded the Principles of Fast Growth Companies, you can get it absolutely free. Just go to genehammett.com/principles. You'll get a 3-page document going through the specific principles that these interviews that we've been doing over the last few years with fast growth leaders have in common. These 12 principles will help guide you to be a more intentional leader, be more influential, build a faster company, and create great cultures. Go to genehammett.com/principles. Now here's the interview with Joe. Hey Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great today, Gene. Nice to be here.
Excited to have you on the podcast to talk about growth, leadership, and culture. Code42 is a remarkable company, and the growth you've had. I've already let our audience know a little bit about you at a personal level, but tell us about Code42.
So Code42 is a software company. We're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but we have offices around the world, including in Colorado and in Washington, D.C. We were founded about almost 20 years ago to solve a specific tech problem around backup and recovery of files. And over the last 5 years or so, we've transformed ourselves into a cybersecurity company that really focuses on protecting data in this sort of new collaborative environment we live in, where we all use Slack or Zoom or all this new technology. And so we're sort of an emerging player there. We're about $120 million in revenue. We serve companies from as few as a couple of employees to some of our biggest customers are folks like IBM or Cisco or Oracle. So lots of big companies are our customers, as well as small businesses as well.
Fantastic. This space of cybersecurity is not new, but it adds new challenges with people working from home and all of the things in collaboration right now.
It's interesting. I've run three cybersecurity companies in my career, and the last one was in 2006. And I remember saying to myself as I left it, cybersecurity is kind of done at this point. There's not that much exciting left to do. I'm going to go do something else. And I went and did something else. I worked in the marketing software space for a while. And I laugh at myself, at my former self, because the thing about cybersecurity is it's constantly evolving. It has to, because technology is evolving that we're trying to protect. And also people are constantly defeating the previous types of cybersecurity. And so you've got to constantly reinvent new things. So it's a pretty interesting business. It's extraordinarily competitive. It's probably one of the most competitive businesses in the world today, because there are about 6,000 startups. We're all trying to get this attention of 500 or 600 chief information security officers. So you have to wake up and really put your hat on every day to go to work and work hard if you're going to be successful in this space.
Well, Joe, you and I have been talking about what does it take to grow a fast growth company, and you mentioned the strategic core values are an important piece of that. So what are those strategic core values to you?
Well, first of all, so I've this is maybe the 6th or 7th company I've run, and if you back up to my 34-year-old self and the first time I got a leadership job, I was keen to be successful young leader, and I was reading Jack Welch's book, and I remember Jack Welch said something to the effect that he spent 80% of his time on people issues, and I was like, what? Like, as a young leader, I probably spent 10% of my time on people issues. It was all about sales and customers and product and marketing and all that kind of stuff. And I vividly remember thinking, boy, that Jack Welch, I can't believe he was successful given what he was focused on. And then, of course, as I've grown and I've failed and then at times had success, I've learned that really, being a good leader is all about people, and it's all about the framework that you create for people to be successful. And sort of at the core of that is having a set of values that the company can embrace and can understand, so that the company can move more quickly, so that people can make decisions within that framework, and they know what's right and wrong and what's expected in here at our company. And also that they know that the values are actually believed in and acted upon. And so the other thing that happened to me as a early naive CEO was Enron was happening at exactly the same time that I was a young CEO. And I remember reading Enron's values, and Enron's values were respect, integrity, communication, and excellence. And many of you listening to this podcast might not know the Enron story, but Enron literally was bringing prostitutes into the office to serve as executive assistants for their executives. So there's nothing about respect and integrity and excellence that goes with that kind of way of running a company. And all this came out when I was a young CEO. And one of the things that I sort of promised myself is I never want to see my values on the wall. I never want to see them in a poster. I want the values to be known by everybody in the company because they know them and that they live them, and that the actions that you take to sort of support your values are way more important than doing some exercise with some HR consultant to have a set of values. So I'm sure we're going to talk more about it as we go, but it's ingrained in me deeply that anything I talk to you about today, is something that if you said, well, give me an example of that's what we focus on at Code42, is not only having a set of values, but being able to point to them and say, we live them every day and here's how. And so that's super important for me. So you're not going to get a lot of platitudes from me as much as you're going to get, hey, here's what we do to support those kind of values.
Hold on for a second. Joe just said something that I want to make sure we put a spotlight on. You want your people to make decisions. Now, what that really means to me is you have removed yourself as the bottleneck of the company. You have allowed them and empowered them in a way that you expect them to come up with ideas and make their own decisions. It really is an important factor in the growth of a company, because when you build a group of people that have the confidence and courage to make their own decisions, you really have something that will grow fast, hopefully adapt at the speed of the market or faster, and hopefully find new innovations. People making decisions is a really important piece to the culture of the company. Back to the interview with Joe. Well, let's dive into that. What is your favorite way to see when people are living the values? I'm sure you have certain rituals and things that you're doing, but what's your favorite?
Geez, there's probably no one favorite, but let me just give you some of the values, and then I'll give you some examples of them, and you'll see how they come to life. So probably at our core, one of our core ones is it's kind of trite. And by the way, feel free to steal this if you're listening and you like it. So there's a whole bunch of companies I know that are using this. It's called get it done, do it right. It's literally that simple. It's 6 words, get it done, do it right. The important thing isn't the get it done part, because that's part of all of our jobs. The important thing is the do it right part, and helping to define for your company what do it right means is hypercritical. And so things that we do, like, are you a positive source of energy for the team? Do you willingly share your expertise with others? We define exactly for our team a set of frameworks that shows what do it right means. And then, as to my point earlier about not just saying it, half of your annual review every year is just on the do it right part. So we basically look, how are you doing against the do it right categories that we've created, and not about how you get your work done, but how are you doing about how you get your work done. And it's impossible to be a top performer at my company mathematically, because half of your grade, if you don't do it right, I should say, it's impossible to be a top performer, because mathematically you can't get there unless you get strong marks in both get it done and do it right. And as you're thinking about this, think about that person you've worked with in your career that was, they got all the deals in. They're a salesperson, they got all the deals in, but they had terms attached to them that were substandard. They created new products. They created a lot of drama in the sales operations organization. Those people that do get it done but don't do it right, they don't survive in my company. We give them 1 quarter to fix that part of the problem. And we are very direct with them about, hey, if you don't do it, I don't care what you're getting done in your job, you're going to have to leave. If you're one of those people that does it right but doesn't get it done, we give you 2 quarters to solve that problem, because good things happen to good people. And usually in that scenario, we've probably put the person in the wrong job, or we haven't given them the right training. So they have all the right work behaviors, and they're trying hard at with the organization. They're just not being successful in their job. We own that part of the problem. So that's an example of probably my favorite, or maybe one of our most core values, and sort of how we bring that to light. I'll close with the story of the first time I fired our number 1 salesperson in the company. And it was one of those things where he came to our sales meeting and he hadn't done the prep before the sales meeting. And that involved like being ready to pitch the new products and understanding what the new products mean, etc. So we told him at that meeting, look, you need to show up next time prepared. And his response was, I'm your top sales rep. I sell more than anyone else. Like, obviously I learned the products. You don't need to worry about me. He showed up at this next meeting and hadn't prepared also, and also scored poorly. And so the sales leader and I just looked at each other and said, let's do it. We fired him. And what we didn't expect, which I now appreciate much better, is that it changed the entire way we interact with the sales force. Because guess what? Every salesperson after that was like, wait a minute, that was the top salesperson and they fired him for not being prepared. So I'm not the top salesperson, so I better be prepared. And so everybody understood after that they had to live the values that we were talking about. And it wasn't just words for us. It actually was meaningful. And of course, by the way, that salesperson, as soon as we unwound his territory, what did we find? We found malfeasance with customers where he was getting some benefits from them and things like that were just, we couldn't believe that we found. But of course, if you have people that don't do it right in one area, they often don't do it right in many. So anyway, that was good learning for us.
Now hold on for a second here. Joe just talked about firing the number 1 salesperson. Did you think he was crazy? Well, what he shared inside this, hopefully you have not had to experience yourself because you've made the right decisions. But what people got you here won't get you there. When I talked to Joe about why that's so important, he shared with us about really removing something that might not be the perfect fit. They might be not living the values of the organization, even though they're really a high performer. And the result behind that was fantastic. When you think about your job as a leadership, it's not just to go along with the status quo. is to look for those areas where people aren't completely aligned and find places where you can improve. And firing the number one sales rep sometimes is necessary for you to continue to grow your business. Removing someone that might be toxic or may not be demonstrating the values that you want to in the organization is your job as the leader. Back to the interview with Joe. Joe, I appreciate all of that. And you're the first company I've talked to. I know you have a core set of values. How many do you have?
We have 5.
So to have 5 is a good number. I've seen people that have a lot more, and I don't understand why they have like so many. But you have singled out one as the kind of the granddaddy of them all. Did you learn that in a previous business, or was that something that you brought to Code42?
That's one I learned at a previous business in working with another CEO friend of mine who used to work for me. He brought that idea and that concept, and it so encapsulated what we were trying to do that we took it and ran with it. And I think we were all at this little company called Eloqua, and that company was bought by Oracle in 2013, and we all spread to the 4 winds. And now, get it done, do it right, you will see associated with dozens of companies, because we've always encouraged everybody, take these values with you when you go. So you'll see it in lots of places. Now we've, at Code42, we've added some and we've changed some over time to reflect who we are. Another one that I'll share with you that I think is a important one we've been really helpful for us is this concept called assume positive intent. And assume positive intent is exactly what it sounds like, is before you jump down your colleague's throat about the mistake that they made, or the disaster that we had, or the bad performance, start by acknowledging what they were trying to do and what their intentions were, and actually do that verbally whenever possible. And it changes the complete dynamics between our back and forth, because when I say, look, okay, so what you were trying to do here was improve the customer experience so that they could get to where they needed to in fewer clicks of their mouse. Yes, that's what we're trying to do. Now, what happened was you created a massive bug in the product that basically ruined the lives of all of our customers. Yeah, that's what happened. Okay, so that's a different conversation than how in the world could you do this? Why did you let this happen? Are you the biggest moron on the planet? It changes the dialogue in a way that what people do is it allows people to be vulnerable and admit that they made a mistake. And it also tells them that, they weren't trying to be a bad person. And so what I've talked to my teams about a lot is that assume positive intent not only works well at the office, it's one of those values that also works really well at home. Because I think all of us at times find ourselves in our relationships questioning how the hell somebody could have done something like that. And so we're constantly sort of whispering in each other's ears, assume positive intent. Obviously, I didn't do that on purpose. I wasn't trying to be the jerk that I look like I was, and listen, in this difficult year of 2020, it's never been more important. And so that's a value that we all hold dear. And you will hear people say that in meetings. They will say it when they're writing to each other. They will say it on Slack at times. And so it's something that I know that we've really embraced.
I love this. And I see a lot of organizations that are growing fast and they don't have the focus of core values, and they wonder why they're having communication issues and issues with psychological safety inside their leadership and culture. You've learned, I guess, probably the hard way. What are some of the things, maybe a story that you can think of, is when you weren't focused on the values the way you are today, that you had to correct?
Well, I think, look, there's, I had a lot of experience as an early CEO, not all of it, much of it not successful, in many different ways to try to create change. I mean, what I kind of somehow ended up specializing in my career is being a CEO that comes in after the founder has founded the company and has sort of hit the plateau of where they can get, and they've either stumbled themselves, maybe they've called in asking for help. Oftentimes it's their investors that are saying, okay, she's reached her peak and she needs some help. And then they would bring me in. And so I see a lot of the mistakes that you can make from not being as thoughtful about your values. And I think that the number one thing that I've seen is the CEO often with positive intent, with all the right intent, believes that everyone understands in the company what is right and wrong and what is acceptable and not acceptable. And because the CEO probably knows in their mind, where are our boundaries? What are we willing to do to get this deal? What are we not willing to do to get this deal? If I'll give you a very tactical example, which is a lot of companies will say to close a deal at the end of the quarter, they'll tell the customer, look, if you don't close this deal now, we are gonna not give you this pricing next quarter. You have to do it this quarter, and that's called exploding pricing, and it's a classic sales technique, right? Well, that's kind of against our values. Like, our first value is put the customer first. And so if you're gonna have a value called put the customer first, like, okay, what does that actually mean? So it means things like no exploding pricing. It means things like money back guarantee. So if the product doesn't work, we'll actually give you your money back, and we'll put that in writing up front. And that creates a level of accountability and responsibility for us. It means that when we make decisions to upgrade customers in certain ways, we always have to think first, okay, is this benefiting the customer, or is this just about us? And so, coming back to your question, I think when companies go astray is I think the CEO believes that they know, that he or she knows what the values are, but people on the front lines, if you don't have an ingrained set of values that we share, people on the front lines don't know how to respond in stressful situations, and they make mistakes. And then you're mad at them because they didn't live up to your values, but they're like, but I didn't know that was our value, and you're not consistent on it, etc. So I think that's the biggest thing. I also think, I've worked with a lot of leaders who talk values, and then in the next breath, they don't live them themselves. And so the person that has to live up to their values the most in my company is me. Like, I have to live up to my values the most. I have to hold myself accountable. I have to assume positive intent. I have to be vulnerable. I have to learn. I have to, leave the world a better place, and I have to show that in my actions. And I have to do things that tell everyone this is how we operate. We admit our mistakes. We own our mistakes. We learn from our mistakes, and we move on. And I think that's when we talk about creating a strong culture. A lot of CEOs view that, oh, that's just new age thinking, and you don't need all that stuff, or oh, that's my HR person's job. And what I would tell CEOs when I'm mentoring them is, look, culture is just you, the CEO, imparting on everyone else your values and making sure that everyone else understands how your values are to drive this business. And so you are the only one that can create culture, and everyone can contribute to culture, but the culture starts at the top. Because if the CEO operates one way and everybody else operates a different way, then you can't be successful, and you won't have consistency. And so I encourage all your listeners, if you're a CEO out there, it isn't BS, this culture stuff. It's actually it's imperative in order for you to really reach your potential as a company. Last thing I'll say on that is I have a phrase that I love, and it's been attributed to a number of different folks, and it's not clear who said it, but it's culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I love it because it's just a reminder to everyone, look, we're clever, we have good strategies, but the truth is strategies change. And Code42 is a great example of that. We have completely redesigned this business in the last 5 years. We used to sell to IT, now we sell to security. We used to sell backup, now we sell insider threat technology. Our strategy has Our strategy has changed completely. We have completely changed our strategy, but our culture is what keeps us who we are. We're the same company, we're consistent, etc. So we work really hard on that, and we work really hard, and we talk about it a lot too, which, in a lot of companies that's uncomfortable. We try not to make it uncomfortable. We want to talk about our culture. And lastly, we always think about how we can make it better. So one of the things that's interesting is we just added a new value. We dropped a value that wasn't working, and then we added a value because it didn't feel right for us. And we sort of call those probationary values. Like, is this our culture? Is it an aspirational value for us? Like, this is what we want to be. In fact, with assume positive intent, it started as an aspirational value, meaning we wanted to assume positive intent, but we weren't actually doing it. And so by making it a value, we started to live it. And now none of us consider it aspirational. But our latest one is one I took from another CEO, and it's just don't wait. And don't wait is a really important value for our company because we're in a fast moving industry, and it gives everyone permission to just go. And when I was talking to my head of HR, my head of people about rolling this value out, we were like, should we wait until the next, annual kickoff meeting where we kind of talk about all these things? And then we looked at each other and started laughing. We were like, don't wait. And so we rolled it out like right then. And so it's really been a great value for us in the last year or so, where we're trying to make a lot of change in our company, and we're encouraging everyone in the company, just do it, go. Do it yourself. Don't wait. Don't ask for permission. Don't run it up the flagpole. Just go do it. And we won't punish you for making the decision yourself, And are we there yet on that? No. I mean, we still there are times when we still have to tell ourselves, why did this take so long? How come nobody just did the don't wait thing? And everyone's like, well, what if I got in trouble? Or what if this? Or what if that? Or what if it had conflicted with our first value of always put the customer first? It's like, yeah, that's true. It's always complicated because some of these times these values bump up against each other. And but we're I guess that's a long way of saying we're always thinking about how to get better here at Code42.
Joe, thank you so much for being here and sharing the richness around how you use the core values and live them. I love the stories. I love the depth that you've gone and the focus that you have on it. And it shows in building a 100 million plus company.
I was glad to be here and always excited to talk to great thinkers on leadership. And I appreciate your time.
Now, Joe's a talker, right? He loves to talk about company core values. Your core values are so important to the success of the company. They guide your people to do the right things, do it right the first time, and all of the other expectations you have inside the culture. When you lead with core values, you really are making an intentional part of how we will work together. Joe talked about a lot of things that you can actually do inside your business. You can decide how much emphasis to put on your company core values. You can decide if you're going to make one of those values supersede all of the others. And are you going to put a bonus structure around people adhering to it? I really love that little detail in today's interview. Hopefully you took some notes. I took notes here. And if you have any challenges moving forward your business, I'd love to get to know you. My job has been studying founders, CEOs of fast growth companies. I've been putting a lot of focus on companies that are closer to 100 million and beyond because I want to understand what they know differently than those that haven't quite reached that milestone. But what I do know is that any journey that it takes to be the leader, you have to continue to evolve. You have to take the defining moments and level up yourself. That's my job. I'm an executive coach on leadership and culture to activate growth. If you have any questions about your company, your own leadership, what's next, make sure you reach out to me, Gene@genehammett.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you share it with a friend. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.